The night I first saw Kola, he was standing in my kitchen, eating my jollof rice straight from the pot. No shame, no spoon, just his fingers on my food. Who are you? I asked. He turned slowly, completely unbothered, a grain of rice sitting at the corner of his full lips. He was tall, the kind of tall that made a room feel smaller. His skin was deep brown, smooth like polished mahogany, and his eyes had this quiet confidence that made me forget I was supposed to be angry. Kola, he said simply. Linda invited me. Linda, my sister. Of course. I was Tobe, 29 years old, freshly transferred to Abuja from Lagos, staying temporarily at my sister's flat in Wuse 2 while I searched for my own place. I had arrived 3 days early. Linda wasn't even home yet, but her boyfriend was. She said I could wait, Kola added, reading my face. He put the lid back on the pot, finally, and wiped his hand on a kitchen towel like he owned the place. Sorry about the food. I skipped lunch. I should have been irritated. I was irritated, but my heart was doing something completely inappropriate. Help yourself, I said tightly, dropping my bag on the counter. He smiled then, just slightly, like he knew something I didn't. I walked to my room, shut the door, and stood against it with my eyes closed. Stop it, I told myself. That is your sister's man. I heard him in the kitchen, the tap running, the clink of a glass, and every sound felt louder than it should. When Linda arrived an hour later, she hugged me and said, You have met Kola. Isn't he wonderful? I looked across the room at him. He was already looking at me. Yeah, I said quietly, wonderful. Living under the same roof as Kola for 2 weeks was its own kind of slow madness. He was at Linda's place almost every evening, sometimes before she even got back from work. He was a UI/UX designer who worked remotely, so his hours were flexible and his presence was constant. He made tea like it was a ritual. He always offered me a cup first. I always said no. Then, one Thursday evening, I came home exhausted from a brutal day at the urban planning firm where I had just started. My shoes were barely off when Kola appeared from the living room holding a steaming mug, Lipton or green tea. I stared at him. How did you know I was coming? I heard your key. You drag your feet when you are tired. He said it casually, like he hadn't just been paying close attention to the sound of my footsteps. I took the green tea. We sat on opposite ends of Linda's long sofa, and the television murmured between us. Neither of us was really watching. I could feel the exact distance between us, maybe 4 cushions, and it felt both too far and not far enough. Do you like Abuja? He asked. Still deciding. Lagos person, he said, smiling slightly. Is it that obvious? You look at the roads like they personally offended you. I laughed, genuinely, suddenly, and something shifted in the room. He looked at me with a different kind of attention, like he was memorizing the laugh. I looked away first. Linda came home 20 minutes later, kissed Kola on the cheek, and dropped beside him. He put his arms around her naturally, comfortably. I watched from the kitchen doorway. He didn't look at me again that night. But before I went to bed, I found a second mug on the counter, already rinsed, turned upside down to dry. He had cleaned mine without being asked. I stood there longer than necessary. Stop it, Toby, I told myself. It happened quietly, the way most important things do. One Saturday morning, I came out early, and found Kola alone on the balcony. Linda had gone to her friend's bridal shower. He was leaning on the railing, staring at the Abuja skyline, the clean lines of buildings, the green hills in the distance still wrapped in morning haze. He was wearing a simple white tee and grey shorts. He looked peaceful, like a painting. You are up early, I said, because I needed to say something. Couldn't sleep. He glanced at me. You? Same. I made 2 cups of tea without asking. When I brought his out, he took it and said, "Thank you, Tobe," in his quiet, careful way, like my name was something he was trying not to say often. We stood side by side, watching Abuja wake up. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Go ahead." Do you ever feel like you're living a life that fits you perfectly on paper, but nothing else? The question landed somewhere deep. Every day, I said honestly. He nodded slowly, like I had confirmed something he already suspected. We talked for 2 hours about work pressure, about family expectations, about how both of us had ended up in careers we were good at, but hadn't exactly chosen. He told me about growing up in Ibadan, the youngest of 4 brothers. I told him about the weight of being the only son in the family of daughters. At some point, I realized I had shifted, so I was facing him instead of the skyline. He had, too. "You are different from how I expected," he said. "What did you expect?" Linda said, "You were serious, closed off." I am. Not right now. You're not. The air between us tightened. I felt it in my chest, that dangerous pull that had no good ending. I stepped back from the railing. "I should shower," I said. He nodded, turning back to the view. "Tobe," I stopped. "Thanks for the tea." I walked inside without answering. Linda announced a dinner, just the 3 of us, plus 2 of her work friends to properly welcome Tobe to Abuja. It was sweet. It was also the worst possible idea. The restaurant was in Maitama, one of those soft-lipped places with low music and tables so close together that intimacy was impossible to avoid. Linda sat between her colleagues across the table, laughing and refilling glasses, totally in her element. That left me and Kola side by side. His arm occasionally brushed mine when he reached for water. Every time, he moved it back immediately, like he was being deliberate about the distance. "Try the pepper soup," he said quietly, close to my ear, so he wouldn't interrupt Linda's story. "I am fine." "You haven't touched your food." I picked up my fork. He watched me take a bite, satisfied, then looked away. It was such a small thing, such a nothing thing, but my pulse was behaving badly. Linda turned to Kola mid-conversation and said, "Babe, aren't you glad Tobe is here now?" Kola looked at me, right at me, and said, "Very." One word, very. I reached for my water glass. Later, when Linda went to the bathroom with her friends, Kola and I sat in the sudden quiet. "Are we going to keep pretending?" he said, low and steady. My heart stopped. "Pretending what?" I said carefully. He looked at the tablecloth, then at me. "That we are just fine? That every conversation is normal? We are fine," I said, "and we will stay fine." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Okay." But his jaw tightened, and when Linda returned, bubbly and warm, sliding her hand into his, I saw something across his face so quickly I almost missed it. Almost. I found my apartment in Gariki the following week. Clean, quiet, mine. I told myself the relief I felt was about having my own space, privacy, independence, nothing to do with the fact that existing in the same flat as Kola had become an exercise in controlled breathing. I moved out on a Wednesday. By Friday, Kola texted me, "Your sister says you found a place. Hope it suits you." I stared at the message for a full minute. "It does. Thanks." Three dots appeared, disappeared. Then, "Good. You deserve your own space." I put my phone face down on the desk. But on Sunday, he texted again. "There's a design exhibition at the Arts Council, Area 1. Thought you might find it interesting for your work. No pressure." An architect and a UI designer at an art exhibition. There was professional reason, completely legitimate. I told myself that firmly as I typed. What time? We spent 3 hours there. He knew the designer behind two of the featured installations, a young Abuja-based artist who fused Yoruba textile patterns with digital geometry. Kola explained each piece with this quiet passion, hands moving slightly when he talked, just like his thoughts were too large for words. I watched his hands more than the art. At one point, we stood before a large piece, two interlocking forms, neither complete without the other, and neither of us said anything for a long time. "What do you see?" he finally asked. "You and me," I almost said. "Tension," I said instead, "and resolution." He looked at the piece, then at me. "Yeah," he said softly, "that's exactly it." We got suya from a roadside spot after. We sat on a low concrete ledge, eating from the same newspaper. Abuja's evening noise all around us. For the first time since arriving in the city, I felt at home. That scared me more than anything. It was Linda who broke things off. She called me on a Tuesday evening, voice calm but final, the way our mother sounded when a decision had already been made. "Kola and I are done," she said. "Don't make a big deal of it. We just want different things." "Are you okay?" I asked. "I'm fine, Tobe. Really, it was mutual. We have been drifting for months." After we hung up, I sat with my phone in my hands for a long time. Months. They had been drifting for months while I was busy pretending I wasn't feeling what I was feeling. I didn't reach out to Kola. I gave it a week. Then he texted. "I guess Linda told you." "She did. I am sorry." "Don't be. She was right to end it." A pause. "Can we talk properly?" My thumbs hovered over the screen. Every sensible part of me said no. He was barely out of a relationship with my sister. There was loyalty here, a boundary that had shape and weight and a name. Linda. But my hands typed. "The coffee place near Transcorp, Saturday, 10 a.m. I wanted to unsend it immediately. He replied with a single word. "Perfect." Saturday came. I arrived 5 minutes early and chose a corner table back to the wall, like a man preparing for something difficult. When Kola walked in, he spotted me before I could rearrange my face. He looked tired, a little lighter, like he had been carrying something heavy for a long time and had just set it down. He sat across from me. "Hi," he said. "Hi." The waiter came. We ordered. Neither of us spoke until the waiter left. Then, Kola placed both hands flat on the table, like grounding himself, and said, "Tobe, I need you to know something, and I need you to be honest with me after." I met his eyes. Okay, I said quietly. I haven't stopped thinking about you since the kitchen. He said it plainly. No decoration, no escape routes. The first night, he continued, when you walked in and looked at me like I was the most inconvenient person alive, something happened. I didn't want it to. I tried to shut it down. My coffee cup was warm between my palms. Kola, I am not asking you for anything, he said quickly. I just know I just needed to say it out aloud to you because carrying it quietly was making me someone I didn't like. The cafe murmured around us, spoons on saucers, soft afro pop from a corner speaker, the low hum of people who had no idea what was happening at our table. Your relationship with Linda, I started, was already over before you arrived, he said gently. I want you to know that whatever was between Linda and me, it had nothing to do with you. You didn't cause it. I looked at him carefully. I believed him. That was the honest truth. This is complicated, I said. I know. She's my sister. I know that too. If anything ever came out of this and she found out, I know, he said again. Softer this time. Silence stretched between us. Outside the glass window, Abuja moved, Okadas weaving, a downfall blaring, a woman balancing a basket on her head with effortless grace. Say something, Kola said. I set my cup down. I felt it too, I said quietly, from the kitchen, from the rice. A breath left him, slow like relief had a sound. But I can't be careless with my sister's feelings, I added. So, we don't move fast. We don't move at all until things have settled, until I know she's truly okay. He nodded immediately. I would never ask you to betray her. Then we wait, I said. He looked at me across the table. I am good at waiting, he said, when it's worth it. 3 months passed. In those 3 months, Kola and I built something slow and careful, like architects laying a foundation stone by stone. We texted daily. Small things, a sunrise photo from his apartment window, a ridiculous sign I passed on my way to work, a voice note at midnight when neither of us could sleep. We never named what it was. We just kept showing up for it. He started bringing food. When he came to visit, not invited, just arriving with a cooler bag and a story about how he made too much. We would eat on my small balcony in Gariki, the city light below us, talking until late. He came with me to a work function I accidentally mentioned. I'll come if you want company, he said. I did want company, specifically his. He was easy with people, warm. He remembered names, asked real questions, made everyone feel interesting. My colleague Fumi whispered on the way to the bathroom. Your friend is something else, Toby. Where did you find him? My sister's kitchen, I thought, eating my jollof. But it was Linda who changed everything. She visited my apartment one Sunday, unannounced, carrying chin-chin she made herself. We sat together for hours, talking about Mama, about childhood, about her new gym membership, and the man at work she was slowly, cautiously beginning to like. She laughed freely. She looked unburdened. Before she left, she hugged me at the door and said, You seem different, Tobe. Happy. Abuja suits you. I held the hug a moment longer than usual. I am getting there, I said. After she left, I called Kola. It's time, I said. A pause. Then his voice, careful, warm. Are you sure? I am sure. Kola arrived at my door that evening, with two bottles of drinks and a look on his face I had never seen before. Open, almost nervous, like all his words were down at once. I stepped aside to let him in. He walked past me slowly, turned, and we stood in the middle of my small living room, facing each other. No food, no television, no excuse to look anywhere else. So, he said. So, I said back. What are we doing, Tobe? I had rehearsed a careful, measured answer, something responsible and calm. Instead, I said, I want to know everything about you. The real things, the things you don't say out loud. Something moved behind his eyes. He crossed the room in two steps and took my face gently in both hands, just held it like I was something he had waited a long time to hold without guilt. I have been wanting to do this since the balcony, he said quietly. Just this, just look at you properly. I covered one of his hands with mine. We have to be careful, I whispered. Linda, we will tell her, he said firmly, when the time is right. Honestly, together, if you want. I won't hide you like you're something to be ashamed of. The words together settled over me like something warm. We sat side by side on the floor that night, backs against the sofa, drinks going warm in our hands, talking until 2 a.m. He told me things he had never told anyone. I gave him the same back. At one point, he laughed at something I said, really laughed, head back, eyes creasing. And I thought, this, this was what I was feeling from the very first night. Not just attraction, recognition, like finding someone your soul already knew. When he finally stood up to leave, he paused at the door. Tobe, yeah, we are doing this. It wasn't a question. We are doing this, I agreed. We lasted 3 weeks as a secret. Not because we were careless, but because Linda knew me too well. She called on the Friday evening, voice gentle and slightly amused. Tobe, is there something you want to tell me? My stomach dropped to the floor. What do you mean? I managed. I saw you two at Jabi Lake last weekend. You were laughing and he had his hand on your shoulder. And she stopped. You both looked so easy together, like it was the most natural thing. Silence. Linda. How long? She asked quietly. It's new. I swear to you it started after. I know, she said. Kola already called me this morning. I closed my eyes. Kola. Of course he had. He told me everything, she continued. From the beginning, he didn't hide any part of it. A long pause. I am not going to pretend it isn't strange to me because it is. Because it's very strange. I know, I said. And if you tell me to end it, I am not saying that. Her voice was soft now. Kola and I were finished long before it became what it is. I know that. What I need to know is he good to you? Actually good to you? My throat tightened. Yes, I said. He is. She was quiet for a moment. Then, be careful with each other. She said finally, and Toby, don't keep things from me again. I am your sister. I can handle the truth. I exhaled slowly. I love you, Linda. I love you too. Unknowingly, I called Kola the moment we hung up. You told her, I said. I told you I wouldn't hide you. He said simply. I sat down on my balcony, the Abuja sky turning amber and rose above the rooftops, and felt something loosen in my chest that had been tight for months. Come over, I said. I am already in my car, he said. I laughed, and below on the streets, somewhere between the evening traffic and the sound of a city that had quietly become home. I heard his engine turn. He was my sister's ex, and he became my person. Thank you for watching to the end. Kindly let me know in the comment section what you think about the story. Also, do well to subscribe, like, and share to enjoy more stories like this.